This screencast is going to walk you through lesson 3 of percents and decimals. So you just learned a little bit about percents and fractions, how to write percents as a fraction, how to write fractions as percents. Now we're going to take a look at percents and decimals. So if you take a look, we do start off with the same essential question, looking at when is it better to use a fraction, a decimal, or a percent. We're going to take a look at a real-world link. And this real-world link is focusing on a survey that tells the favorite subjects of students in Martin Middle School. So if I take a look at part 1, it says to write a fraction with a denominator of 100 to represent the percent for each subject. Earlier, we've learned that percent means out of 100. So if I'm thinking of 28% for math, I would write that as 28 over 100. Go ahead now in your packet and fill out the other 5 subjects or the other subject area. Then you're going to jump down to part 2 and you're going to write each fraction from exercise 1 as a decimal. Remember, if you can say the fraction, you can write it as a decimal. All of these are going to be something hundredths. So think about how would I write that as a decimal. Part 3 says to look back at exercise 2. Compare the decimals to the percents. Explain how to write a percent as a decimal. So I would like you to complete part 3 as well. We're going to flip to page 2. At the top of page 2, you have some directions for writing percents as decimals. It says to write a percent as a decimal, divide by 100 and remove the percent sign. This is the same as moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. So if you take a look at our example, it says 48%. They remove the percent sign, place a decimal point after the 8, and move it in 2 spaces to the left. That would get you a decimal of 0.48. Another way to write a fraction as a decimal is to write the percent as a fraction. Then write the fraction as a decimal. So whichever you're more comfortable with, you can use either strategy. Go ahead and take a look at the first 2 examples where they are showing you how to write each percent as a decimal. Take a look at method 1, take a look at method 2. Then take a look at the second example for changing 8% into a decimal. Finally, look at 2%, changing that into a decimal. Once you feel like you have a pretty good understanding, go ahead and try part A, B, and C under the Got It section with 32%, 6%, and 93%. We're now going to look at page 3 of your packet. Another key concept area says to write decimals as percents. So earlier we looked at writing percents as decimals. Now we're going to look at the method for writing decimals as percents. To write a decimal as a percent, you're going to multiply by 100 and then add a percent sign. This is the same as moving the decimal point 2 places to the right. So if you think when we went from percents to decimals, we moved it 2 places to the left. When we are moving or changing from decimals to percents, we are going to move the decimal point 2 spaces to the right. Another way to write a decimal as a percent is to write the decimal as a fraction with a denominator of 100 and then write the fraction as a percent. So once again, you could go ahead and write 36 hundredths as 36 over 100, and then that would still be the same thing as 36% because percent means out of 100. There are some fun little pieces of information that they add in your packets that you may want to start taking a look at that we might not always highlight in class. But this one is pretty interesting, and it says, why does it help to write a decimal as a fraction with a denominator of 100 when writing decimals as percents? So that's just something for you to kind of think about and reflect on as we continue through this lesson. If you take a look at example number 4, it says to write 0.38 as a percent. So right away, I would say 0.38 is 38 hundredths. Here you go, 0.38 is equal to 38 hundredths, which is then equal to 38%. Method 2 is moving the decimal point. moving the decimal point 2 spaces to the right so that you get 38%. Take a look at 0.2. 0.2 is written as 2/10. This is not a denominator of 100, so we would still have to change this so it becomes 20 over 100. 20 over 100 would then be equal to 20%. You could also move the decimal point. You could move the decimal point over 2 spaces, and that would get you to 20% as well. Go ahead and try the 3 got it problems at the bottom of the page, and then flip to the back page of your packet. On the back page of your packet, they give you one more example that's more of an application question, so you may want to read over that. And then you can go ahead and jump down to the guided practice section. For numbers 1, 2, and 3, you're going to write each percent as a decimal. 4, 5, and 6, you're going to write each decimal as a percent. Then you're going to take a look at our STEM question. It says about 0.7 of the human body is water. What percent is equivalent to 0.7? And then finally, what is the relationship between percents and decimals? Think about how can you change a percent into a decimal? How can you change a decimal into a percent?